if you hate what you are doing every single day, like you absolutely loathe it, and there isn't anything pushing you, because there's one thing like, hey, if you have no money and you need to provide a roof over your head for yourself, maybe your family, your children, food on the table, that's a different mindset, right? From that perspective, money is the motivator, because you got to get your head over water. But once you've gotten past that point and you're just kind of doing the same thing over and over again, you're like, I don't want to live this life anymore. Then find something that's going to cultivate some form of inkling inside of you that can resonate with you enough to where you can do it every day and not be deterred from.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Thrive State Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. V, triple board certified MD and performance and longevity expert. And today we talk about habits. Now, if you've been following this podcast, you know that habits are really the determining factor for activating the biology of peak performance and longevity. Habits are also the things that create anything we want, whether it be love, marriage, business, health, success. We are basically the reflection of who we are and who we are being. So on today's episode, you get to learn the secrets from a podcast host who have interviewed thought leaders of the habits of the few, the habits that make people healthy and wealthy. Now, if you're new to this podcast, welcome in. This podcast is really all about bringing in thought leaders to give you the habits, mindsets, and tools for you to live a longer life, but not just extend your life, how you can create a more vibrant energy so that you could have a thriving life. A key to that would be to pick up my book, Thrive State, Your Blueprint for Optimal Health, Longevity, and Peak Performance. You could get your copy at thrivestatebook.com. If you are a returning listener and you've got a lot of value from this podcast thus far, please consider leaving us a 5-star review wherever podcasts are heard. That's going to help the show grow and bring more thriving individuals all over the world. Here today in this conversation is Mo Naboulsi. He is actually the host of Habits of the Few, where he actually interviews world thought leaders on how they become healthy, wealthy through their habits. And we get to dissect which habits lead to a longer life, what habits lead to success. The Habits of the Few podcast is really about reverse engineering the psychology of achievement. Mo Naboulsi is actually a believer in the power of stories. And if you listen to his podcast, embedded are stories that tell how habits have created a beautiful, successful, healthy, and wealthy life for all his guests. Mo has actually spent the last decade studying the habits like meditation and journaling, leadership principles from the ancient Greeks and modern science on self-awareness and much more. And on his podcast, he really brings together the thought leaders, the minds, the thinkers of the most successful people all over the planet. And on today's podcast, we actually review the most revealing habits of the few. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome this conversation with Mo Naboulsi. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very special edition of the Thrive State Podcast, as we are podcasting each other with the mighty Mo Naboulsi. He's the host.
Hey man, thanks for having me. I'm excited. This is I haven't done one of these in quite some time, as you could probably tell.
So I just want to ask you, I've seen your and heard your podcast. You've interviewed, some of the best minds in business and health and relationships and things like that. Bobby Lauren says, Thrive State, let's go. We are going to go. So tell us a little bit about, I know you've come from a marketing background, but when did you start diving into the habits and wanting to kind of create this platform to help people?
Yeah, really great question. I appreciate it. It all really, first of all, it all stemmed from the concept of I wasn't happy with where I was in my life and I wanted to change it. And it all started with a gratitude journal, gosh, almost 20 years ago. And that led me to understanding the power of gratitude, mindset, and meditation. And I just went into a deep dive. I started reading Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, and then that led me into this whirlwind of like, oh my God. But the thing that truly like put me over the top, that inspired me, was reading Tim Ferriss's book, Tools of Titans. And I created this podcast with no intention behind getting to where it is today. It was primarily a kind of like a video diary or audio diary for me to be able to get access to people that primarily probably couldn't get access to at the time, and just really picking their brain. So it came from a selfish endeavor. It wasn't intended like, hey, I want to help people. It was more like, I want to help myself, and this platform is going to enable me to be able to do so. As we started moving forward and I started getting a lot of requests and questions and input and comments and things, I was like, man, there's something here. There's a lot of kids, because the primary demographic, like 70%, is between 24 and like 36 years of age, predominantly male. So like I sympathize and I empathize, and I'm like, man, I want to be able to give people access to some of the brightest minds, and no bullshit, pardon my French, and just no nonsense, complete, like, this is what you got to do. And it's all about the frame of mind and how you can weaponize the mind to really ultimately create the life that you want, versus just the same old nonsense rehashed guru mentality, which I frankly don't believe in. There is a method to the madness, and it's the simple things, but it's that repetition of those simple things, the being able to create discipline so that you can imbue that with resilience, because motivation is fleeting, inspiration is fleeting, their emotions, they're not going to get you to the finish line. They're going to help ignite you and give you that to me, like, motivation and inspiration is like, Tinder. You can get it, you can get the fire started, but after that, if you don't have the discipline, if you don't have the framework for mindset and the tenacity as well as the resilience to put you through, you're not going to make it. So that's kind of like my whole mindset and start to this whole thing.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that I feel like people struggle with most. They get inspired by listening to a podcast. They get inspired by a concept, and then they're able to do the thing for a few days, a week, a month. And typically people, really get that jolt of energy right around the beginning of the year when they come up with their resolutions. What do you find is the problem with discipline, and how do people?
That's a good question. And these aren't my thoughts. This is the culmination of many, many far more intelligent people than myself. I think the cultivation of discipline is creating those habits, because discipline cannot be instilled until you've done something enough to where it's ingrained, in order for you to be able to cultivate that discipline and see it through. Because discipline is like, it's like calluses on your hands. Discipline to me is a combination of resilience and habit. And the calluses that you develop on your hands, you don't get them right away, but when you do start to get them, they start to hurt a little bit. You're lifting weights, you're working, manual labor, whatever the case. But over time, they harden and they get thicker, and you don't really feel anything. The pain is you might still feel a little bit of pain, you might still feel a little bit of resistance, but you can handle it. And so over time, you're building that resilience. And so ultimately, it's creating those foundational habits. How do you stick through those in the beginning? Well, you have to have a big enough want. And, there's always this concept of like, oh, you shouldn't follow your passion, because passion doesn't necessarily mean it's going to provide, let's say, income or, financial success. But yes and no. Because in the world that we live in today, your passion can make you a tremendous amount of wealth, tremendous amount of happiness, so it can correlate to both. But I will say this is the one caveat to all of that is, if for whatever reason the thing that you are passionate about cannot be turned into, let's say, a business or a career, then find something that at least can get you to spark that itch so that you can stick through it long enough. Because if you hate what you are doing every single day, like, you absolutely loathe it, and there isn't anything pushing you, because there's one thing, like, hey, if you have no money and you need to provide a roof over your head for yourself, maybe your family, your children, food on the table, that's a different mindset, right? From that perspective, money is the motivator because you got to get your head over water. But once you've gone past that point and you're just kind of doing the same thing over and over again, you're like, I don't want to live this life anymore. Then find something that's going to cultivate some form of inkling inside of you that can resonate with you enough to where you can do it every day and not be deterred from. That's how you can stick to a habit long enough to where it becomes ingrained to where it leads you to the next step.
Yeah, I think that's so important to know. And you and I both study the great thought leaders, and at the end of the day, sometimes I come up with something and I'm like, oh my God, that's a really awesome thought I have. I don't necessarily think things that the people actually are the owner of these thoughts. I mean, the energy is out there. We just happen to download them along the way. But one of the things Robin Sharma said, as it pertains to habits, is that it's one of those things that when you start, it's going to be hard. In the middle, it's going to be messy. You're going to fall. You're gonna not feel like you want to do these things. Those things are normal, and I think if people understand that process, like I'm not going to want to feel like excited and motivated all the time, but you do it anyway. And if they understand that more, that it's a part of the process of building that, then they could at least know the obstacle that's going to stand in front of them.
Amen, man. You got to fall in love with the process. And it's like I always tell people, comparison is a thief of joy, right? We all know that famous quote. However, comparing yourself to who you were yesterday, that is completely healthy. And if you're just making millimeters, inches, centimeters of growth on a day-to-day basis, and you're just pushing that needle forward, you're winning. You're winning every single day. To me, as long as you're not moving backwards, whether you're standing still for a brief moment and then you're inching your way forward, you're absolutely winning. You're winning the game of life, in my opinion. Yeah. Let me ask you a question real quick, Doc. Before I want to know, in your opinion, what's more valuable for people? Is it having resilience, or is it having passion? Because I always think like it could be one of two things. It could be the combination of the two. But like if I had to choose, gun to my head, I would have to say resilience, because that can get me through anything. What are your thoughts on that?
It's always sort of the push and pull thing, and I think it's important for both. I mean, it's very nice, like a theoretical type of question, because we can actually have both. But I do agree with you. I think resilience is one of those things that you sort of have activation energy to build a muscle to, whereas a passion is something that can just instantaneously come from you and you get pulled towards. But building that muscle takes a little bit of time. And certainly if we don't have resilience, there's no way forward. If you don't have resilience, it means that the stresses that come into your life, you're like, oh my God, I can't take it. That thing was too hard. I'm not feeling it, and you stop. I think there's a universal law of greatness, and it really comes from studying how diamonds are made, right? Diamonds charcoal carbon deposits, these like little insignificant things that deep down in the earth, if you give it enough heat, enough pressure, and then time, will form this brilliant diamond. And that three combination, heat, pressure, and time, is almost a universal law for greatness. The pressure is the stresses that are going to come into our lives that we have to build the resilience for. What's the heat? The heat is the passion, it's the persistence, it's the purpose, it's those things. And if you just add the element of time, if you have all three, there's no doubt in my mind we become something great. If we look at the Michael Jordans, the Whitney Houstons, the people that have built great companies, those three elements are there. And it just goes back to us talking about passion and resilience. The heat is the passion. The pressure that's given to our lives is the resilience that we have to build.
Yeah, 1,000%. I couldn't agree with you more. I think nowadays with everything that's been going on, we've got cold plunges and cold showers and morning routines. I agree with so many of them, and this is something I want to talk about real quick, because I believe that if you don't have this innate capacity to just put yourself in a manner of like struggle and knowing that you can overcome that struggle, it becomes difficult. It's just like, going to the gym, creating that habit to be able to exercise long enough, or let's call it diet. Like the simplest things work. You don't need some magic formula. You just need a little bit of resistance, a little bit of endurance. And with diet, listen, eat more of the good stuff, less of the bad stuff. It's the law of thermodynamics. This, calories in, calories out. So if you are overweight, reduce your calories, or use those calories in excess through the burning of energy, whatever the case may be. I think we overcomplicate things. And we like, yes, a gratitude journal is great to have first thing in the morning. Yes, taking a cold plunge or a cold shower to wake up your nervous system and get a good, dose of dopamine, great. But like, you don't necessarily need all of those things. Like, you can just get up and do the thing that you need to get done. But if you're struggling with that and you need that extra oomph, do you think that that's a good, like, what would be like a good, quick morning routine that for people that are struggling with developing resilience, they can at least get them like, hey, I just won the first thing of the day, and now the rest of my day is going to be a lot easier because I just did the hardest thing first. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I would probably say this, and this is something that was harder than I thought when I started this thing. And I think but it's pretty simple to just attach because it doesn't take a lot of time.
Yeah.
The first thing really is to not check your phone in the morning. All right. When you check your phone in the morning, basically, we might talk about this later. You can ask me about this later. We've got this default mode network. We got programming that basically takes us away from being able to be fully attentive to the choices that we want to make moment to moment. And when you pick up your phone, basically you're saying everything that all the mental energy and capacity, you're going to give to something else, and you're going to go down the rabbit hole of whatever that is. So if you don't pick up your phone in the morning, that's number one. And the second thing you do is just very simple breathing. I teach a very simple 4-7-8 technique.
I'm with you.
And if you just do this with me now, Mo, let's just do this once. It's going to be an in-breath for 4, we hold for 7, and we're out for 8. We'll just do this once. In for 4. Hold for 7. Out for 8.
I just went in a one of those hyperbolic chambers. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
Right. That's only one breath. That's only one breath. I tell people to do that 10 times. That's only going to take you 2 minutes. What will that do? See, that out breath actually activates the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic nervous system and brings down the calm in your body. Now, if you're able to learn to do that, particularly in the morning, what you're able to do is you're able to just drop down into you. You're able to drop down of something that is just purely you, and you can drown out the outside forces that normally get your mind into, in whatever state your mind is normally, diving into. If you could do that in the morning, and then you could add other things to that, you could really design the type of day you want. And if you use that same breathing throughout the day, you're able to, ask yourself, how do I want to show up right then? What choices do I make at this point? And if you've got a decision to make, a choice to make, I tell people to go through that process all the time. But just those two simple things that will probably take, not only the breathing only takes you 2 minutes, and not getting into your phone and, at the very, very first thing, you are in the mode where nothing else but yourself is present. And
that's just fantastic. To me, that's where I think like meditation gets overcomplicated. Like what you just showed us, that's meditation, because I'm calmer, I'm centered, I've cleared all of the debris of thought, and I know that when I open my phone in the morning, all I have are emails, and 90% of them are fires that I have to put out. So like, imagine like, what does that, I mean, you tell me that, what does that do to your brain? Like, what does that do to somebody's brain?
Well, all it is, you're out there, you're trying to solve problems, and it increases cortisol. So you're just putting out fires. And at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're putting out fires, and then you need maybe entertainment to distract yourself so because your brain is fried. And what happened? You probably didn't, set the day, towards the intent that you wanted, that day to be. And that's all it is. I mean, the person we become, the health we want, the business we want to create, the relationships we want to have is all about the intention of how we want to show up and the actions and the energies we want to put into those things. And if you're distracted and if you're constantly putting out
that's absolutely
fires,
huge. That's
you
oh
won't
my
have
God.
that
And it's
energy
such a simple thing to do. Like waking up, instead of grabbing your phone, do that breath practice for 2 minutes. I mean, I can only imagine. I'm going to practice it, man. Like I know everybody listening, people are watching, like you may not know me, but I'm a practitioner, I'm a student, and I don't bullshit. I will straight up practice this thing. And if I find value in it, it will become part of my routine. And I love things that are quick and adaptable. The next thing I wanted to ask, what's one or two things that we could do every single day that are simple, that are beneficial for our health, that everybody can have access to, besides the breathing technique? I'm talking maybe nutritionally, something maybe for, physiologic.
Yeah, you got it. Well, I mean, I talk about basically 5 main keys in my book, Thrive State. There are 5 areas that truly actually speak to our DNA. So our DNA is listening to different energies all around it. People think that our health or our energy and our emotions and our success, is from our DNA. We get DNA from mom and dad, and if we inherited bad DNA from mom and dad, we will have bad health. That's actually not the case. Yes, we inherit DNA mom and dad, but it's not static or fixed. The DNA is a living, breathing, and interacting thing, and it's constantly listening to the energy that's around it. If it gets a signal, it's going to say, okay, make this protein and do this thing. So the DNA is always listening. So what are the things that most affect the energy around our DNA?
This episode of the Thrive State podcast is brought to you by the Thrive State Accelerator. The Thrive State Accelerator is actually a home course that I developed using the exact same techniques I work with my celebrity clients, CEOs, and executives on how to get them to the Thrive State. The Thrive State Accelerator teaches you how to master your 7 bioenergetic elements. That's sleep, nutrition, movement, stress and emotional mastery, relationships, our thoughts and mindset, as well as purpose. In this Thrive State Accelerator, you're also going to get a bonus module on optimization. That's how I talk about supplementation, peptides, all the optimization techniques I use with my clients to get them to the Thrive State. Now, for some of you who are just joining us for the first time, you guys might be wondering, what is the Thrive State? Well, the Thrive State is actually the energy, the epigenetic environment we give to ourselves, telling our DNA how to act and how to respond. And if we want optimal health, longevity, and peak performance, if we can master these 7 bioenergetic elements, our ability to have those 3 things that we just said, optimal health, longevity, and peak performance, is at its greatest. And it also prevents you from getting chronic symptoms like brain fog, being overweight, feeling sluggish, acne, pain, all these chronic symptoms, as well as preventing you from getting chronic disease. So getting to that Thrive State is really getting to that state to master being that very best version of yourself so you could show up for you, for your family, for your business, everything that's important to you. So go ahead, check it out right now at kienvu.com/accelerator and use coupon code podcast25 for 25% off. Now back to the podcast.
5 things. 1 is the physical, which includes sleep, movement, and nutrition. We could dive into those things in a second. Next, our thoughts and mindset are things. Our emotions are things. Our community are things as well, and also living a sense of purpose, meaning we're there to share ourselves with other people. All those things actually create this energetic field around our DNA that controls basically our biology and our health. And so when it comes down to what to do in each thing, my book goes down, into every one of those categories. Simply, nutrition, you make it so simple, and I completely agree with you. You get rid of the sugar and processed foods and eat real food. That's all you need to do. And if you restrict the time that you eat, say from 12 hours to 10 hours to 8 hours, if you do that, it actually brings more energy, more health, and more healing in your life. So that's in the field of nutrition, just real quick and easy. Move every single day. You don't need to go to the gym necessarily, but some people they'll fight for a parking spot that's right by where they have to go. No, why don't you walk to where you need to go, or park all the way at the end of the parking lot so you can get some movement in? You know, it's not moving that basically creates, you know, low energy, poor immune system, and poor cognitive health. When we're moving every day, we're moving our lymph, we're moving our blood, we're getting blood flow into our body and into our brains. We start stimulating brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So just moving every single day is super awesome. Now, one of the things I would love to teach out there is a very simple concept called the impact framework. The impact framework is basically a framework I use to guide every single choice and action in my life so I stay in the thrive state. Now, people talk about old programming. And so from the time we're conceived all the way up until the age of 10, we are just a sponge for information. We're downloading information. Our parents, social media, TV, news, our teachers, coaches, we're downloading all this stuff. And our brain basically takes all this stuff in without even thinking good or bad. And we're basically making our beliefs and model of the world and where we fit in the world. And here's the thing. It's actually the autopilot survival mode of the brain. And the things that hurt us most, the things that bring us fear, our traumas, it's going to remember even more so. This is the old programming. And sometimes people are like, well, you know what? I know eating a healthy diet is good for me. But what stops me? There is probably some old programming that associated maybe feelings of discomfort or stress and having to reach out for sugary foods. It's an old programming that makes us, make choices that are not in our best interest for our health or our relationship and our business. So how do we make better choices? Well, this is where the impact framework comes in. I am stands for basically the vision, your I am, the bold vision you have for your life. Do you want to be courageous? Do you want to be confident? Do you want to be giving? Do you want to be healthy? Do you want to be playful? That's the identity you choose for yourself. And here's the thing, if you close your eyes, go through those 10 breaths, you can actually feel all those things without a job title, without money in your bank account, without a fancy car. It's the I am, it's who you choose to be. And you don't need anything outside of yourself to actually be those things. So whenever you get triggered, your spouse pisses you off, somebody cuts you off, on the freeway, you're feeling lazy on the couch, whatever it is, go through that impact thing. The I am. What's the P? The P is the pause. Create a little bit of space. So the pause is taking those 10 deep breaths I showed you in through your mouth and out, and then you act. A stands for awareness. All right, I'm about to react right now. Can I have awareness that something's coming up in me that I don't like? Where's that coming from? Is it that old, belief that I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy? What is that? And then when you have that awareness, ooh, I got that, I want a bite of that chocolate cake, is it because I'm stressed? Is it because I'm bored? You have that awareness. And C is choose. You make the conscious choice. Something came up. But if you're able to breathe through it, that charge lessens, and then you could choose from your I am. Who do you want to be? You decided if you want to be courageous, if you want to be confident, if you want to be healthy. You choose, you make that choice. And once you make that choice, you immediately take action. So this whole process is something that I go through moment to moment, almost every single day. If I catch myself making a choice that is not in my highest or best interest. So it's a great technique to use in different moments throughout the day. So
and where can they find your book?
And taking actions on the person you want to become. They can find my book on Amazon right now, and I am actually releasing a new edition of the book in March of next year. It's going to be the second edition. So Thrive State is really about making the conscious choices that puts us in an energetic state that basically gives our cells the signal of optimal health, longevity, and peak performance. In the second edition of this book, I actually talk about how this energy actually feeds into other
Oh,
people.
absolutely.
Have you ever walked into a room and like be able to just feel the energy? The thing is, if we create that energy within ourselves, we have motor neurons and different receptors in our body that other people will feel as well. And this is actually how you transmit this energy within you to other people, and how you could actually activate performance and longevity, not within
I
you,
wanted to
but
go back
your
real quick
families,
before we
your
move forward about
teams, or
sleep
your
hygiene, because I really want
businesses.
to talk to you about that. You were mentioning, like I'm about to get into this mode right now.
Yeah.
This stuff is coming up before you get into an argument or whatever the case. You're saying, well, was this something that happened from this time or that time? Do you believe that a lot of times, no matter the belief system, no matter the history, no matter the trauma, do you believe that that's really just ego talking?
Yeah. I believe the ego is this thing. So
Yeah.
scientists are beginning to learn more about this thing that I talked about called the default mode network. And it is the survival autopilot mode of the brain. And what some scientists they call it the seat of the ego. The ego is basically this thing that we've created within ourselves to protect ourselves from danger. Our personalities are developed from it. And so, yes, it basically forms who we are as people until we become aware of it. And yes, there are parts of this ego that wants us to just survive. And can we see basically that whole process of impact where we pause and we have awareness? We got to ask ourselves, are we acting in place of this old programming or ego? Or are we choosing to show up differently?
What makes that difficult, and I appreciate you answering that, what makes that difficult, I found out, like personally and from experience, from other people's experiences, is that sometimes those situations take place in situations where perhaps you're around friends, family, acquaintances from the version of you that was like 6 years in the past, or the version of you that was 2 years in the past. And it's like this weird subconscious thing that takes you back to that moment. And it's like, no, I'm not that version of me anymore. Like, you can't keep placing that upon my head and saying, no, this is who you are. So I expect that reaction. I expect you to perceive the situation in that way, which becomes toxic. And then it's like, you almost get this moment of like, oh shoot, I'm back in this mode again. I need to get out of it. I need to move away from that perspective. So it ends up making you feel like, I don't even want to be around those people anymore, but it sucks because maybe those people are part of your inner circle, maybe they're part of your family. And how do you develop that, I guess, I don't want to necessarily say resilience, but enough of this like inner calmness to where like that doesn't even affect you anymore? Because like you said, energy is like, you could feel that. And if it's so toxic that it's inhibiting you from being able to communicate, what do? You just cut those ties?
Yeah. Well, that's a really, really awesome question.
If you're comfortable.
Give you almost sort of like a very personal answer too. Now, I think for some people, if it's friends that energetically, pull you down, it's probably best to create that boundary and create some actual physical space, so that you're not in there, so you could do the personal work, so that if you ever return to that, you can come in from a place of calm of like, actually, I don't feel that way, and I'm not this person. This is how I want to act. I want you to be able to relate to me in this way.
Yeah.
But what if this person is an intimate partner? Myself and my fiance are going through, have been evolving through this for so long. We've got basically our own traumas that we've come into the relationship with that activate each other's traumas. And initially it was just trauma reacting to trauma over and over again. And then when one person wants to change or shift, it's very difficult when you see that person every single day to be able to say, no, I want to live into this new version of myself. And in those situations, it could be hard just to say, okay, peace out, I'm out, particularly if you believe in this relationship. And I think it really requires, dedication from both persons to do their own work and to be able to show up a little bit differently. And I think once you tap into the place where you are in calm and be able to communicate from that way of calm, without being activated by whatever their reactions are, people could sense the truth. People could sense the truth. And when I get to a place where I am so grounded and I'm not reacting to my partner, what I'm sharing from that place, she goes, oh, we're in a different place now, And she's actually online right now. She's like, that's me. But that's something that I think it's a challenge to do in relationships, but we've been able to do it. We've each been able to do our own work. And I think when we show up a little bit differently, when we don't react in that same
that's the
pattern,
win.
and there's a different energy, that is felt. And I think when I'm able to share that part, when I'm in that space and I'm not reacting,
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. For you to be that self-aware,
that is you.
and understand and create this I guess this formula of some kind, because like you can only work on yourself. You can't have the expectation of like, hey, you need to work on yourself. I need to work on you. Like that doesn't work. This expectation.
Trust me. She's still on now, but I'll tell you right now. Back in my former state,
brother.
I was thinking there was so much. Oh,
Yep.
if she would only change this.
Yeah.
That's going to make our relationship better. And honestly, that never works, because that creates an energy that I don't think, you and me as men, I don't think, women feel that as being safe. But when we can work on ourselves, when that energy changes.
Yeah, no, bravo, 1,000%. And I know many men can understand and empathize, and maybe they're going through it right now, or maybe they went through it. But that's never a winning solution for anybody.
I got a question for you. Yeah. Look, you've interviewed like the best in the space. Are there a few quotes or particular mindsets that have stuck with you so much that you're like, man, I applied this, and that the thing that this person shared was so powerful that I just lived by
there was
this.
one by a
Have there been one or two
gentleman
of those
that said, see if I don't butcher his quote, but he said, happiness isn't a state of mind. Happiness is a state of self. And that really resonated with me, because I think when the time that I heard this, I wasn't in the best state mentally and spiritually, and again, I always say spirituality is different for everybody. And when I reference spirituality, I mean like the core of my soul, like who I was and where I was at. And so that really resonated with me, because it made such a significant difference to how I perceived the life. And because at the time I'm like, well, we all know that perception is reality, but perception is reality for ourselves as well. So how we perceive ourselves is our current reality. And my current reality at the time was not good. So that was a big thing for me. That was probably the most impactful. And I'm happy that you mentioned something. I'm actually, once we hit our 100 episodes, we're actually going to be putting together a Habits of the Few book, which is kind of like a remnants of Tools of Titans, where I'm going to take a collection of the best that I've interviewed and create these mini collections, mini chapters, put them together. And again, it's really for myself. But a friend of mine's like, dude, you should just publish this. And, so I'm hoping, well, I'm sure we'll have you in there as well, to be able to put something like that together, because there's just so much incredible information out there that I think once compiled thoughtfully and systematically, without so much fluff, it really just like, hey, this is the meat and potatoes. Like, we're not worried about all that extra side dishes and whatnot. Like, let's just get to the point. But that for me was probably the most significant thing that I have heard to date. Yeah, because I know we're going to wrap up soon, and I'm a big believer in like sleep hygiene, and so I really want your take on that. Pretty please. Again, another selfish ask.
On sleep hygiene. Oh yeah, absolutely. So look, sleep is so important. I mean, people don't sleep only because I think there is many people suggesting that sleep is for the weak. I'll sleep when I'm dead. Even physicians that go through the whole training process, people are up doing 80 to 100-hour work weeks, being on call. The thing is, it disrupts your circadian rhythm if you don't have a regular sleep schedule. So the most important thing that you could do every single day is go to sleep and wake up at the same time every single day. That's going to be key. And how do you maintain the schedule throughout the day so that you're sleeping better? Well, one is, if you're putting out fires all day, if you're on your phone all day, if you're on your devices, it emits blue light. So that's going to suppress melatonin. So After a certain time, like 3 hours before you sleep, I would say shut off all your devices. If you like blue light blocking glasses, you could use that as well. Coffee and alcohol, past 2 p.m. is going to disrupt your sleep, so you're going to avoid those things afterwards. That would be great too. And then also come up basically with a really good nighttime ritual or routine. Whether it be journaling, writing down what you want to complete for the next day, writing down what you did for the day. That's going to quiet down your brain. Some of the people can't sleep when they get to bed at night because they're constantly thinking about the things that they forgot to do, or they're constantly thinking about things that they need to do. And when those loops aren't closed in your brain, it'll keep you up. So a good nighttime routine is just to take a little bit of time journaling. What did I love about today? What did I finish about today? What can I work on tomorrow? What would I like tomorrow to be?
That's
like?
a good question. How would I like to feel when I wake up? That's a very good question.
Having that intention.
Love that.
Yeah. So coming up with that, I think is great too. And then, other additional tricks like keeping the room cold, or biohacks like, having a chili pad that actually cools down your mattress, actually helps you sleep a little bit better as well. But those are some good sleep, hygiene tricks. We could go into more specifics if you have any questions. But I think, if people just focus on those things and realize that, sleep is not for the weak, that we all need regular sleep to perform at our best. That's why it's like the first thing,
it's the most important thing. And I used to be an insomniac for years. And so when I was able to finally get my sleep down, I mean, it's like a natural steroid. Like I cannot express how amazing it is. Like I'm sure everybody has woken up and like, oh my God, I had the best night's sleep. And you're happy, you got energy, and you feel good, and like the world is just like sunshine and rainbows. So if I could get that almost every day, I'm gonna be a rich man. So.
Well, sweet, Mo. I know you guys, you're coming up with a new book next year on habits of the few. How do people find you?
Honestly, the easiest thing is you just Google habits of the few. You can Google my name, Mo Naboulsi, but I'm on Instagram at real Mo Naboulsi, habitsofthefew.com, monaboulsi.com. I think the easiest thing is just going to be able to Google me, and you can find everything that I'm attached to, primarily the podcast, because that's all I do nowadays.
Well, my friend, thank you for being on the show. And last question for you is, with everything that you've seen, of all the tips and tricks that you've heard
for
in the past,
for habits in general, or just like personal development in general?
It could be anything.
I think the greatest lesson that I have learned is having zero expectation of everybody else. That the expectations lie within me, that they lie within you. And so if you want to be a critic towards anything, be your worst critic and be your best critic. And as long as you set the expectations for yourself, everything else will kind of fall into place. Just take that off of people. You can't do that. You can't do that to people. You can't expect anything from anyone. Have your high standards for yourself and higher expectations for yourself, and watch how the quality of your life starts to be better.
That's beautiful. Mo, hey, thanks for being
Absolutely.
on the podcast.
This is great. I appreciate the invite, man. Thank you so much. Everybody that's following me, go follow him, please, for the love of God. I will share this everywhere. This is going to be on my podcast. We're going to get the audio and video version. We're going to do some cool edits and cool clips. This is going to be rad. Love it. Thanks, brother.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Thrive State podcast. And if this podcast is bringing a lot of value to you, if you find that your life is just improving with this podcast, that your life is getting to the next level, please consider supporting it. And here's a few ways you can do so. You can do so by liking this video and commenting on this video, and also sharing this video with your friends and family. Another thing you can do is go to ratethispodcast.com/ThriveState. Go ahead and leave us a 5-star review there. It will really, really help this show grow. And this will give me more time so that I could actually give more content to you, just like you got in this episode. And if you haven't already picked up a copy of my book, Thrive State, Your Blueprint for Optimal Health, Longevity, and Peak Performance, you can pick it up now. It became a #1 new release in longevity. Go to thrivestatebook.com. And if you enjoy the book, please consider leaving us a review as well. And the last thing you can do, if you're liking everything here and you want to work more closely with me as well as my team to get you into the Thrive State, go to kienvu.com/accelerator and consider joining the home course, the Thrive State Accelerator. It's really the course that I use. It's the concepts that I use personally when I work with CEOs, celebrities, and my high-profile clients to get them to the Thrive State. Again, the Thrive State Accelerator at kienvu.com/accelerator. And because you're a listener of this podcast, I want you to save 25% by using the coupon code podcast25. I hope we continue to give value to you. And remember always, you are your best medicine.